Ross McCrorie. That's Ross McCrorie who equalised for us against Aberdeen at Pittodrie. Isn't it? Against Derek McInnes' Aberdeen at Pittodrie. When we really needed a win that night, it was the penultimate game of the season for both teams. We end up our last game of the season, we drove 5 each at Easter Road and we finished third. We can't get up into second because Aberdeen, miracle of miracles, have beaten Celtic. Not just beat them, but beat them at Parkhead. It's funny how it was trophy lifting day for Celtic. They'd won the league ages before that. Funny how Aberdeen managed to get a win against Celtic that day. But that's no fair in Derek McInnes' Aberdeen because, of course, we now get a newfound respect for them. I remember when we were in the lower leagues, Andy Walker at Pittodrie, very, very scared about Derek McInnes' Aberdeen beating Ronnie Delia's Celtic quite easily. And there was a thought there that maybe Celtic were actually going to lose the league without Rangers in the same division. Didn't quite happen. But I just remember Ross McCrorie in that game equalising against Aberdeen, and then of course Derek McInnes signs Ross McCrorie for Aberdeen on loan, and then just before, I think it's a month maybe before Derek McInnes is sacked by Aberdeen, he signs Ross McCrorie permanently for the Pittodrie club, doesn't he? And then we've signed Ross McCrorie from who? From Bristol City. Who did Derek McInnes used to manage before? Bristol City. This is why he's got the manager title back. That's why he's not the head coach. There's something going on. There's some technicality. It's a legal loophole. There's definitely machinations involved that are allowing Derek McInnes to become the Kevin Thelwell of this new operation. He's doing the Kevin. That's his Chermiti. Ross McCrorie is obviously Derek McInnes' Chermiti. He's just trying to give money to his old club, and there's some sort of skimming off the top type thing. He'll be getting a commission. He'll be getting a wee back pocket, or he'll be getting. I'm just trying to find something that's wrong with Derek McInnes because we're all just feeling far too good about Derek McInnes becoming the manager. How you doing, folks? This is your fat ek. Derek McInnes has been revealed to the press in a Rangers tie as Rangers manager, enjoying a sun-tanned, kind of teak, mahogany, uber hirsute, healthy look for the very last time in his life. If he's going to do the business at Rangers, if Derek McInnes is going to become a proper Rangers manager and do everything that we need him to do, then this time next year he's going to be grey of complexion, of hair, maybe not even have any hair left next year, and then it'll be fine, because it's not actually about how many trophies he wins, it's just us knowing that he suffers as much as us when Rangers don't win. That's what being a real Rangers man is all about. That's the real appeal of it being a real Rangers man in the position, because if we're feeling crap, he's feeling crapper. No some German that can just head back and have a laugh because they've deliberately lost to Ecuador to put Scotland at the World Cup and back in Teutonic land. Reaction pod coming to you in association with Gersnet. Check out Gersnet. And every Sunday, I'm coming to you in association with Gersnet and Miami Gardens, Miami, Florida, Miami Marlins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, Inter Miami, Miami Modern Architecture, Miami famous Art Deco Architecture, Miami Sound Machine, and Miami Vice, both the movie and the TV series Miami. Michael Mann there. My name's Alec Anderson. Hey doctor, could you give me something just to ease the pain? To ease the pain. Cause if you don't help me soon, I'm gonna lose my brain. Gonna go insane. A duck to beat. A Scott and get beat. How you doing, folks? My name's Alec Anderson. The King paid $12.9 million in tax. I think it was pounds, actually, but I'm getting confused because it's the 49ers that are in charge now, and because Dave King is in there, and South African Rand or whatever. It's King, that headline coming up, and you get the BBC News app, and that's the headline that come up on my phone, and it's amazing. I'm thinking, do you know about EBTs, Charles? Because your mother certainly did. She was right on the EBTs. She knew all about them, didn't she? But it's King. I'm thinking Dave King, because Dave King's the reason Derek McInnes didn't get the job in 2007. Didn't take the job in 2017, but Dave King's also the reason that we got Steven Gerrard in, so some folk want to build a statue for him, but of course Dave King just a shyster who wasn't fronting up 75 million to properly, save Rangers. No, he was just doing the Rangers supporter, no doubt, after Liverpool. But it's quite funny how this time it's the portrait up in the dressing room of the King. Certainly hope so, but it's Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs Service that did us in. His Majesty is now paying the tax, and the folk are saying it's enough, and EBTs, it's all very... So I'm just trying not to think about the fact that Scotland, it's like a virus. It's like a virus that gets stronger because the more your system resists it, the hope that kills you. The more your system resists the hope that kills you. It's a cliche. I know it's a truism, but for a reason when it comes to Scotland. It's almost like the building your hopes up about Scotland virus just finds different ways to get in there. This one isn't even, this version of it isn't even bringing hope. It's just torturing you in the length of time it's taken to officially exit this particular tournament. I had great hopes of Scotland going through to the second round this time, just because sheer law of averages, it's quite unusual. It's unique. I just realised, I listened to John Champion on STV before the Morocco game. That was the first time I'd ever heard that stat, or the first time I'd ever chosen to remember it, which it's quite stunning to think about it. It never really occurred to me before, when all I'm obsessed with when it comes to international football is Scotland getting through to the second round of a tournament. We are the team that has been to most World Cups without ever getting out of the first round. And it always comes down to goal difference. It's almost like we got properly humped. We only played 2 games in 1954. Bang, bang. Get beat 1-0. Get beat 7-0. You're out. Go home. That's it. That was absolutely fine. Only got a single draw in the 2 games. In the 3 games we played in the 1958 World Cup, we gave it a right go. But it's 1974. Willie Orman's heroes now, just didn't lose a game. First team ever to go at the World. Scotland do. It's a first round thing. I'm actually getting to the stage where I'll be a bit upset when we ever go through to the second round of a tournament, because it'll ruin this unique record we've got. We beat Zaire. We draw with Brazil. The holders, the 1970, this is 1974, 4 years after the performance in Azteca, where we could go to play Mexico City in this World Cup, in Mexico City to play Mexico in this World Cup, if we were to get through. Is one of the 8 best third place teams, but we drew 0-0 with them, and we beat Zaire 2-0. We draw 1 each with Yugoslavia side, but Brazil, everybody goes, oh, Yugoslavia beat Zaire 9-0. No, we only beat Zaire 2-0. Zaire now DR Congo. But of course, Brazil only beat them 3-0. It was a goal. It was basically 2 goals, if you like, that have put us out that World Cup. It's kind of agonising. Even 1978, total disaster, but we're 3-1 up on the Dutch in Mendoza. Oh, great goal by Archie Gemmill. Was it 1 or 2 more we needed? I mean, the Dutch pulled one back. No, that was fine. We were out, as we probably deserved to be, but it was still painfully close. We took the lead against the Soviet Union in the last game in Malaga in 1982. Oh, we've got to just one more, just get the win here against the Soviets, and that's us through. And then they go 2-1 up, and soon as equalises, like, oh, there's a chance we can. 1986, it even goes down to the third place game. The Uruguayans get a man sent off in the 5 seconds. It's just got to beat a 10-man team, and it just drags it. We can't get the goal. It's not like Uruguay then with 10 men beat us 2-3-0. They just went for the 0-0 that would put them into third and knock us out and fourth, and that's what they got. Get the ball cleared off the line and stuff like that. 1990, I know Italia 90. There wasn't much happening at Italia 90. It was 98, France 98, we get properly stuffed in the last game by, we actually get saved. That was probably our best ever tournament, because if we had beaten Morocco in that last game in Saint Etienne, Norway beat Brazil in the other game for a kind of agony. So that's actually our best tournament. We're just properly well out of it after the end of the third game. We never played more than 3 games at a tournament. But Italia 90, and I've gone on about it endlessly in my wee World Cup podcasts this summer. I finally took the time to look it up today. It was Udine. It was Udinese's stadium, and it was Uruguay 1-0 against South. They actually won the game 1-0. I couldn't remember if it was an equaliser or a winner. It's Daniel Fonseca. I knew that, but it was the very last minute. The very last minute. They had the thing in place then, back at Italia 90, of the best placed third teams in third would go through to the next round as well. And even though we lost 1-0 in our final group game to Brazil, we lost to Costa Rica as well, we beat Sweden in between times, there was a chance we could still. It depended how South Korea got on against Uruguay the next day. We just needed Uruguay to not win, and they weren't winning right up until the last bloody minute. And I remember that. I looked up the dates today. It was the next day. We definitely played Brazil in the Deli Alpi at night time, and it was the next day. And I remember because I was at my work, and me and I fell at my work and I listened to the radio or whatever, listening to it for the results. And this is pre-mobile phones days, pre-apps days, and we found out that Uruguay had scored in the very last minute. But it was still within 24 hours. So what we're doing this time is, again, it's goal difference. and the agony. There's also the third place thing. Teams could finish with less points in third place, technically. It's not going to happen. But before we kicked off against Brazil in Miami, I predicted it would be 1-0 to Scotland or 3-0 to Brazil. You'll never guess which one of the predictions came true. But it just feels... The reason I was predicting 1-0 to Scotland is when it does happen, when Scotland do go through, I think it'll be magical. I think it'll be amazing. It will be the way Ecuador did it tonight as I record. Just watched Ecuador beating the Germans. But before the game, I think the massive thing was Bosnia. I'm watching the bit of the game I was watching. Qatar were piling it onto Bosnia in Seattle, even though Qatar were 2-1 down. Never thought I'd be supporting Qatar in anything, but if they equalise, that's it. Then the two of them will finish on 2 points. So Scotland are already ahead of them before we start our game against Brazil. That's the kind of thing. They're out the way. We're above them, so we can go through it. You need to have a kind of safety net before you go in and do something extra special. Scotland don't usually have that into these games, but they didn't. Bosnia went up the park and scored against the run of play, 3-1 to Bosnia, and in the game immediately after, Scotland, the other group concluding immediately after Scotland's group had concluded was Mexico's group, and I was so busy focusing on the Czechs, who only had a point, but they were playing Mexico, but Mexico were top of the group already through. Maybe they'd rest players, they wouldn't be concentrating. So when I saw like 60 odd minutes gone, 70 odd minutes gone, it was 2-0 to Mexico. I thought, yeah, beauty, yeah, absolute beauty. And I thought, oh, what's the other game? Because I wasn't really worried about South Africa. I watched bits of their games; they weren't very impressive. And South Korea were quite sharp. And I turned over just to South Africa, I think totally against the run of play, scored. And I just sat there at like 4 o'clock in the morning watching this play out, just watched it to the end as South Korea absolutely pummeled South Africa's goal. Couldn't get, I think it was Monterrey, couldn't get a goal, couldn't get the equaliser, and they're on their knees at the end of it, the South Koreans, because they think they're out. Because South Korea finished third in that group on 3 points just, and on a minus goal difference, -1 goal difference. So again, we're way back to 1974. If only we'd scored a few more against Zaire. If only we'd conceded a few less to Brazil. Yeah, if only we'd beaten Haiti by a few more. It's just going to be... It's this, and then you get... Oh, surely. I mean, Cote d'Ivoire did beat Curacao. That was fine. Curacao only going to beat the Cote d'Ivoire, end up in 4 points. But I just knew the Germans would put the reserves out. They would certainly be psychologically resting up, and they even took the lead right early doors, and it was far too early. And that's what the Germans, the one time I want them to do something for me, the one time I actually need something from them. But the reason I admire the Germans is because through the ages they've timed it. They've been crap when they can afford to be crap, and they've been great when they need to be great. So tonight they've no need to be great. They've got a whole tournament. They're trying to stay here for the full length of the tournament. Brazil have a terrible qualifying campaign for this under Ancelotti. Their worst qualifying campaign ever, I think it was. And then they start off with a draw against Morocco, which they should probably have lost that game against Morocco. We have the best qualifying campaign ever. Arguably one of the best night of the modern age at Hampden. The game against Denmark to top the group and just do it in phenomenal style. We win our first game in the group against Haiti. I had my problems with that, the way it's been celebrated, but never, the nation was celebrating, the team was celebrating. Steve Clarke was really chuffed about it. We finished third and go out. Brazil were top of the group. Finished top of the group and they're just starting to warm up. I mean, it's the difference in class, the difference that just shouldn't be there. But what we're stuck with is having to watch all these teams and all these groups finish a better third than us. I think there will be three teams. There will be three teams who finish worse off than Scotland. Third place finishes that are worse than Scotland's, and it will be the last three groups that conclude. I don't know if that's even fit, but some of them might be in 4 points already. I might be talking rubbish there, but it just feels like that's the best way to carry. So back to Rangers. Let's get back to Rangers. It was nice of Rangers to do this presser to reveal Derek McInnes to the press on the day that we played Brazil. You know, it could be the greatest result in Scottish football history. So get in the back of that. And I think it's more the attention-seeking thing. Rangers just demanding, hating the fact that we're looking at anybody else in the bar. You know, be looking at me, always be paying attention to us. Always be paying attention to us. So they kind of stand, no having a complete underweight. No, like a toddler who's wanting you to come down. No, don't just sit on the couch and tell me that you like what I'm doing with my buses and my Weebles and all that. Get down on the carpet. bust your knees, get in about this. I need to know you're paying full attention to me. It's the same thing with Rangers when it comes to just changing managers and stuff like that when Scotland are trying to get through the World Cup second round, back in the World Cup for the first time in 28 years. But it was nice of them to wait until the end of the first 2 round of fixtures at the World Cup. The first two sets of fixtures, the first 2 games for everybody in the group stage had all been completed. That's when Rangers come out and do the presser for Derek McInnes. And I've got my wee scenery that I set up in the background to try and distract you from my gorgeous face, my face that pretty much fills the screen. Anyway, to give you a little bit of relief from my fizzog, I put stuff up in the background, a wee bit of scenery that I set up, and it's all been kind of Scotland themed, isn't it? Because the World Cup, doing these wee World Cup pods. But I didn't have to change it very much. Now to talk about Derek McInnes, do it, because we're back to being totally Scottish. That's the whole thing. It's all Scottish. Super apt. Has there ever been a more Scottish, if not a kind of West of Scotland press conference in the history of Rangers? But the comms guy, I think, he's a bit pale, and he had an accent that kind of indicated he maybe takes the Wains on holiday to Arbothy and the Yorkshire Dales or something like that. But Jimmy Gillespie and Derek McInnes, it's Dubai. Sharm el Sheikh. That's where they're going on holiday with the wife and the Wains. And we're back to working class Scottish stuff, where we're back to being really, really suntans and really kind of broad accents. That top table that we have seen far too often in the past 10 years, really. This is a new guy. I'm happy to say I can announce to you, Rangers manager, Rangers head coach. This is for a change. There was no Americans in that table. There was no Scousers, only Germans, Belgians, Dutch, no natives of Brighton. We had technically Scottish dad. It was just proper Scottish and pretty working class Scottish. The weirdest accent, the most exotic accent in that press conference yesterday. I'm talking to you on Thursday that the press are revealing Derek McInnes was on the Wednesday. Thanks for that, Rangers. The most exotic accent in that press conference was Ewan Cameron's kind of Edinburgh Playhouse pantomime dame. This is what we wanted, though, eh? This is what we wanted. All of a sudden, we wanted everyone to be Scottish and go back to, I think, the footage of Nazi wannabes putting the shit out at a brown person in Enoch Square while shouting, "Scotland, you black bastard!" Was it 2 weeks ago or something like that? That's probably giving the McInnes appointment the final kind of sheen of real world, street level, gangster filleting, barroom circle wank emissions. You know, you get the guys, it's like, I fucking tell you what the problem is, you know. Got to get a fucking Protestant in the job. You got to get fucking Scottish guys back. There's always, it's kind of one, it's not just a solution or opinion they're offering, they're telling you how it fucking works, you know, and that kind of thing. With the slight threats of they're really going to bore you with lots of stories about folk getting slashed and stuff like that. So that's maybe giving it the sheen of approval with that's kind of group within the Rangers support that frightens everybody else into having the same opinion. I've sussed this out, says Andrew Kavanagh, St Andrew's Cross Kavanagh. I've sussed this out, and Jim Gillespie says, "You're fucking right, you have, Andrew. You're right, you have, by the way. You sign Shankland, you get McInnes in the door, and you name check Dan Purdy and Stig, Inga, Bjornley, but you just name check them. You don't reveal them. You don't have them coming out with their kind of really un-Scottish accents there and talking to folk in public. Just name checks only. If we can't dominate like we did in the 1990s, the early 1990s in particular, up to 97 really, at least look and sound like we did back then. Anybody want to go to the Steps Bar? We're back. Rangers are back, just like we were this time last year when the 49ers took over. When Steven Gerrard won the title, failure to get into the Champions League the following season was deemed an absolute disaster by us, the fans. I mean, Gerrard blamed the board for it. There was something to that. He blamed the board for it too, but he's really just saying was Rangers don't have enough money yet. We're still recovering from liquidation, so we don't have enough money to do this. Right, but he was blaming the board because they made him promises, and then he was off to Aston Villa within a few months. We'd won the Premiership title the previous season, unbeaten, with a 100% home record. Derek McInnes got the boot from Aberdeen the day after we clinched 55, back in 2021, early March 2021. Steven Gerrard never played a single domestic match in Scottish football, far less competitively playing for Rangers. Today, we're all enthused since Wednesday. We've all been, since the appointment of Derek McInnes, we've all been super enthused because we've got a real Rangers man back in the post, a proper Rangers manager like Alec McLeish and Dick Advocat and Walter Smith, none of who ever played a minute for Rangers. Someone never played for Rangers. Willie Waddle and Alan McCoy, legendary Rangers players who did things as managers of Rangers which will go down in the annals of our history, which probably make them amongst maybe the two greatest figures, arguable, Bill Struth and all, but for me, they're arguably the two greatest figures in the history of Rangers. I think because of what they did as managers, more than what they did as players even, and they were amazing players, Willie Waddle and Ali McCoist, but neither of them won the league as a Rangers manager. Neither of them won the top league title as Rangers manager, Willie Waddle and Ali McCoist. It took till Roma at Ibrox for the first anti-49ers. It wasn't an anti-49ers banner. What was that? When we played Roma? September? October? The 49ers took over in June, and it was folk, why are you not more enthusiastic? I'm not enthusiastic in that cheap sort of way because this changes everything. This means everything. I'm not going to get enthusiastic about it's I mean, folk day run about, that's a bad one. Like folk day run about offering cigars and stuff like that and celebrating when they have a win, but it's one of the real things. It's so base level, fundamental, life changing that you sometimes to run about cheering and shouting about it and getting in folk. It was just, people are dying to have a reason to get in the face of Celtic fans after so many years of being second best in Scotland. I understand that, but I thought, no, it's too big and it's not going to be smooth. Almost, if it's going to work properly, it can't work smoothly. They're going to come up against, we want them to deal with the real problems at Rangers since everything that happened in 2012. And that can't be solved overnight. Money is the main thing to solve it, but that can't. We've already had the previous board, they did so much of the groundwork. But there's still going to be stuff that has to get done, and it's going to take a wee while. And it took, as I predicted, it wouldn't go smoothly, and it was the Roma game a few months later, where it was the banners were coming out with the crosshairs for Derek Thelwell and Patrick Stewart. We're going to shoot the CEO, and we're going to shoot the sporting director, technical director, whatever it is, things that they weren't actually saying that, but they were implying that these guys have got to go. They're the target of our ire. They need to go. And there was another banner, it was the ICF banner, and it was saying, "Come on, 49ers, you said you were going to make us great again," or something like that. It was a wee kind of. We're thinking about. We're not going. It's no time for us to go on to you because you've got the hundreds of millions that we need. But you're getting a wee mention already in a very threatening general atmosphere towards the area of the director's box and certain parts of the boardroom, certain seats down maybe the bottom end of it. So I didn't really get too far ahead. The one guy in that presser on Wednesday who knew exactly how plastic the self-congratulatory vibes are about himself being appointed. The one man that knows he's a dead man walking forever at Ibrox when his manager was Derek McInnes himself. He's an absolute class act, and he is a true Ranger. It's a big day for Jim Gillespie as well. Another reversion to the answers on your doorstep. Who took forever to arrive. Sorry, Scotland. It's all about Scotland. He's Scottish. He's west of Scotland. He was at St Mirren. It's just this own Paisley Road. How better can it get? Now we're all about Scotland. All aligned. Everybody's aligned. It's aligned just because he's got the blue sky thinking. He's got the jargon. His Jim. He speaks CEO, but. The only candidate, he told us, Derek McInnes was the only candidate for the job. He belted that out like he was belting out the sash. Did Jim, and the big reveals from Jim Gillespie, our new CEO, who we've had, booked in for years, but has only just turned up recently, and how he has turned up. Well, that one, we're still pure modern behind the scenes, but our kind of nut bar fans think that head coach is too woke. It's too woke a term. So we're going to use manager. Just saying manager is now the same as making the manager wear brogues and a blazer. Maybe performative, or maybe it's a genuine idiosyncrasy that genuinely boosts everybody around the club, everybody in the club, and it does actually have a material improvement, material effect and improving stuff around about the club. And they also revealed that Danny Röhl was let go. It wasn't that Salzburg come in and bought him off us, but I take it he'll also want us to be really chuffed that we got money for that. We got more money for Danny Röhl than we had to spend on getting Derek McInnes from Hearts. I like the transition thing. I like the fact that we're getting a manager bought off us because he's doing well, rather than we're having to sack another one. But then Jim comes in and tells us, no, he was let go. I think this was a kind of unnecessary as far as I'm concerned, but it was backing Derek McInnes. It was, yeah, we sacked him the minute we knew Derek McInnes was available. The minute we could get Derek, we always wanted to get him, really. And we thought, I'd get rid of Danny Röhl. Just so happens RB Salzburg had come in with all that money for him. He'd been approached by Wolfsburg as well, and his family had never moved over here. But I'm not slagging Jim Gillespie. I think he was quite impressive in a very particular way in his presser, very reassuring. But everybody was there. Rangers Review, STV, BBC Scotland, Sky, Heart and Hand, four lads. Mark Dingwall, if you follow was there as well. It was just, you knew this was a big deal. I don't think Tom English was there, mate. Oh, he's in America watching Scotland. So all the bases were touched. All the main points were covered. And Derek McInnes' reveal presser, Heart's sense of betrayal, the kind of homecoming nature of the appointment, VAR being what cost Hearts the title, what he expects from his team, from his Rangers team. And Derek McInnes dealt with everything in the way, in the tone Walter Smith would have. I don't really know what I'm doing with this podcast. I don't know what I'm saying except just covering what was said yesterday. It's not so much that going Scottish is going backwards. It's the kind of cultish need for a one move fits all, for a cure-all, for this one answer, one move that was somehow, it was always staring us in the face. This was always the answer. Why are we not doing this? Why do we not do this earlier? Obviously, it's McInnes. I don't think that's really been happening with the Rangers support. As such, I think we've all just quietly went, Danny Röhl, let's see what he can do next season. And then Derek McInnes, well, he's always felt like a comfortable appointment for the last few years anyway. It's felt like Derek McInnes is destined to come back to it. And then the time he was at Aberdeen as well, it felt, we've been trying to get him since 2017, if you like, in one shape or another, shape or form of another. He's always been keeping his career ticking over to a point where you thought, this is possible. He knows the club, he's an expert, but so when he comes after his most successful season ever as a manager, and you're thinking, yeah, that's fine. It's a bit weird how it's all happened, but yeah, that's fine. But we're getting people, there'll be Rangers supporters, Rangers podcasters, people who are actual journalists trying to make money from needing to, realising that journalism has changed. It's not about print media anymore, but applying the same weight to podcasting, etc. Kind of pretending they're Rangers supporters, or that that's their first aim of their podcast. I need to get this shit out of my system. These guys need to make money from them, and they need everything to be embattled, embittered, slightly hysterical, and it's all kind of, and there's Rangers supporters out there who just, like all football clubs have supporters who just want to be uptight and excited about something. Great, it means they're not taking it in other aspects of their life. We use this as a kind of social pressure valve, but I just feel it's all kind of, McInnes should have always been appointed. That's common sense. You always back away if you focus start going about common sense. And it was always staring us in the face. It's our seventh manager since Steven Gerrard. 7 in 5 years. We've had 7 managers, different managers or head coaches in 5 years. Nothing here's simple. Nothing that Rangers is simple, and it shouldn't be for a club of our size with our ambitions. McInnes is what we need right now. It's amazing that suddenly he's arrived at the club and it was always the answer. And he's always been available to us. We could have got him anywhere that he was, and we weren't really slagging the club. Not in a great, there was always people out there, voices in the Rangers support, who wanted Derek McInnes in. But more often than not, we're kind of slagging Derek McInnes as not being good enough for us, and thank God we didn't get him in 2017 when he knocked us back, or he knocked Dave King back. But in this culture, this kind of culture of McInnes is the answer, he was always the answer, like going Scottish is the answer, it's all SPFL Premiership players we need. It's kind of setting us up for an even bigger fall when it goes wrong, or when it starts to have problems. There was a kind of mild tub thumping, if you can get such a thing. Even subtextual tub thumping, can you get that? At this press conference, it wasn't coming for McInnes. McInnes was pleading. He's got a kind of plaintive tone to everything he says, Derek McInnes. He's always very sincere. But there was some self-congratulating and mild, can you grandstand mildly? I'm doing all these kind of oxymorons. It felt weird. It felt bit too showbiz. It felt slightly hubristic. I've probably just got we believe he's the man for the job fatigue. Watching these press conferences, these presentations of managers and head coaches endlessly, particularly in the 2020s. But I'm still gathering my thoughts on this. And while they gather, both of them, my kind of instincts are saying domestic success is coming. A guy who went distant seconds to Celtic as Aberdeen manager, and a painfully close second when he was Hearts manager, is now got the resources that's going to let him outgrind Martin O'Neill to the Premiership title for Rangers. Derek McInnes is absolutely what we need right now. It is a homecoming. And that's why I think it's getting to me. It's a homecoming for Derek McInnes. It's a homecoming for us. And the reason I'm not singing and dancing is because it's home for Derek McInnes. Rangers is home because he is one of us, because he is class. He is the man. He has nowhere else to go after this, Derek McInnes. I mean, he's going to end up getting the Man United. When he takes us to the Champions League final, and then probably wins it the following season, you know, he's going to end up getting the Man United job. Maybe he'll go to Spurs or something like that after this, but I don't know. When he's 2 years younger than me. He turns 55 next month. I turn 57. And apart from the fact that obviously gives us some sort of bond, that's what I seem to be making out anyway. You get to that age, I used to have ideas about going abroad and living abroad and all that, and I love my foreign holidays and things, but as you get older, you want to be home. Even though there's less people at home, because most of them are dying now, or you fell out with them or something like that. But this is it. This is it for Derek McInnes, I think. This is the end of the journey of getting here, the end of the journey of actually getting to it. This is where he wants to be, and he's got a hell of a journey now to get us back to the success that will keep him here. But for him and Lauren Shanklin, this is it. Steven Gerrard could fail anywhere. He could fail absolutely anywhere as a manager. He's a legendary playing career, famous throughout the world. Steven Gerrard did properly, globally legendary things. Rangers, just visiting. He's just visiting Rangers, really. Philip Clement, okay, he's in Norwich just now, but he just goes back to Belgium. He learned a bit too late that losing to Queen's Park in the Scottish Cup isn't just a minor inconvenience. But even though he's at Norwich just now, he can always go back to Belgium, where he's an outstanding success as a manager, an outstanding success as a player. He's got the respect here, as well as his family. Danny Röhl never brought his family over here, and he showed his displeasure, his consternation, even when his side were booed, going off at half time against Kilmarnock, 1-0 up against 10-man Kilmarnock. Doesn't Derek McInnes will understand exactly why we're booing only 1-0 up against 10-man Kilmarnock. Derek McInnes is home. He's got nowhere else to go after this. And you watch his Rangers TV interview, the kind of one-on-one interview he does on the press conference day. What does landing this job mean to you, Derek? He was asked. He just says, everything. Everything. And he's no lying. This isn't Martin O'Neill concocting some sort of backstory so he can appeal to the Celtic support. So he's getting these kind of... He's pre-arming himself against any slip-ups by getting under the skin of the Celtic support, telling them what that element in the Celtic support that's the same as the element in the Rangers support that suddenly has decided Derek McInnes is the man because he's no German or something like that. Every supporter has got this. But Martin, you always remember him talking about when he was a schoolboy coming to Parkhead and going on a tour of Parkheads. You know, he's very articulate and he's good at telling a story as Martin O'Neill, and he could sense the aura of Jock Stein round about the place. What he means is he never played for Celtic, he never played in Scotland. He scored against Scotland at Hampden, but he'd nothing to do with Celtic. He went on a tour with his schoolmates when they come over to Glasgow, went into Parkhead, it was fucking empty. Celtic weren't even playing, but he's turned that into, he wasn't even at a Celtic game, but he's turned it into, see me, I'm the inheritor of Jock Stein's aura, because I'm a total Celtic man. None of this shite for Derek McInnes. Celtic fans see right through that as well with Martin O'Neill. Don't get me wrong there. Well, some Celtic fans, some don't, some buy into it. But he's talking about when I signed for the club 31 years ago. Derek McInnes, my dad was in the manager's office. He were in the blue room. My dad was in the manager's office next door and knew, Christ, I'm the manager. That's my office. And I think when he gets asked by, it was Adam Binney, because it was almost like it was being done in alphabetical order, the actual press conference. Adam Binney, AB of Sky, what does it mean for you to sign for Rangers, to become Rangers manager? It's special. He's already signed for Rangers. He was a player back in the 90s, but it's special for me and for my family, and there's plenty of other people that I could think of. I think folk that have died, obviously, people that mean the world to him, family members, and that. It just means so much for him to be manager of Rangers. This isn't performative. This is Derek McInnes' life. The gaffer and Dick. He's talking about the gaffer and Dick. We saw what the job did to Walter, turning Sasha Distel. I mean that because the gaffer and Dick, he's talking about Dick Advocaat as a disciplinarian. Dick Advocaat had that proper aura of a Rangers manager as well, because he played under him, but he also played under Walter Smith, and it's Walter Smith that he calls the gaffer. He knows what it takes to be Rangers manager. He knows, he's talking about how he wants to be the kind of manager that he would play for as a player, and he's even got Dick Advocaat second to Walter Smith. Everybody's second to Walter Smith as far as we're concerned, and that's the guy he calls the gaffer. And of course, Walter Smith, Alan McCoy's made the joke about how he turned up at Ibrox looking like Sasha Distel. By the time he left, he looked like Steve Martin. But Walter Smith actually suited, gone a bit grey and all that. He actually looked more handsome, I think, more regal by the time the first time he left Rangers. But you see Derek McInnes today, his skin, yesterday, the skin's the same colour as the wainscot and the wood panelling around him in the Blue Room, and the arch window on the Edmiston Drive is reflecting on his super brown, super shiny forehead, like a kind of massive third eye, which he's going to need in this job. That hair, I'm so jealous of the hair he's got there on his face and on his head, but it'll all be grey or all gone by this time next year. He's home, and home is where we realise we need to get a job so we can get away from it, because that's where the real pressure is. The real pressure's always at home. The stuff you really properly care for is at home, and it can be every bit as stressful as it is comforting and lovely to be there. I'm kind of pre-disgusted. I think that's my problem. I don't have a problem. I mean, I'm not just sitting here effusing about how brilliant it is to have Derek McInnes as manager. I'm pre-disgusted, I think, as per last summer with the 49ers takeover, that so quickly and hysterically, hypocritically, the very reason we needed Derek McInnes will become, for those loudest about wanting him, when he achieves precisely what they wanted him to achieve, that will be why they start hounding him. I'm old enough to remember the 90s when Derek McInnes was there, when people were starting to claim, people who hadn't been there for the 9 years in the trot, they hadn't won the title, when Ibrox was getting crowds of 9,000 and 6,000 and stuff like that. The people who weren't there when Aberdeen, Dundee United won the league, Celtic as well, and we were finishing 4th and 5th in the league. I was a kid at the time. It made it easier to earn your stripe. When everything's an adventure, just going to Ibrox was great fun back then. So it just so happens by the time I was born. But you definitely couldn't help noticing that suddenly there's 40,000 season ticket holders at Ibrox, 30,000 season ticket holders at Ibrox. There's 40,000 there every game in the late 80s into the early 90s, and I started hearing these folks say, what's the point of winning the league all the time if you're not going down in the Champions League? What's the point of winning the league titles if you're not going down in the Champions League? This is what happens. It doesn't just become a case of we're doing really well. That ambition we had, we're doing really well, but you should try and do something extra. And if we can't, it doesn't matter as long as we keep winning the league. People, and it's true, you have to keep pushing yourself. You have to want the next thing. If you're not trying to go forward, you will go backwards. But the way we do it at times just ends up sending us much worse than backwards. It sends us under. But I'm just worried that there's something about this, about Derek McInnes coming back in, that's going to turn pretty quickly. Dick Advocaat, I had to get Dick Advocaat, and we had to get a European in, to make sure we could win in Europe. And then I'd beg Alan McLeish, just get Alan McLeish in. Let's go back to that. We started claiming league titles were worthless if you're doing nothing in Europe. And Ewan Cameron is far from the most dangerous kind of media character around Rangers just now. And people not there yesterday, but the reduce it all to one incontrovertible truth types have been setting us up for our next kind of fan protest in the very act of lauding McInnes' appointment. he's a man, it's a man's job, and all this kind of stuff. Like sexist pish apart from anything else. I get, but it's mental. But it's this thing of like Europe is woke. It's very Brexity almost. European achievement is kind of woke. It's kind of fancy Dan what he do stuff in Europe. It's like saying s'il vous plaît, did I please? It's we don't like that now. No fancy tactics. Was 4-2-2-2 fancy? Just all high energy and physicality, was it no? What's the fancy tactics? Does everybody know got to have a certain tactical knowledge, wherever they're playing football these days, wherever they're managing these days? This bread and butter football, what bread and butter football, common sense, all this kind of stuff. Danny Röhl showed signs in his short spell last season, both of what he could do, what he's potentially capable of doing with Rangers, what we could be playing like when his plan would come to fruition, and also I think he showed signs. His team ends up suffering by what happens when you change a manager mid-season, and has been well documented, they're set up for a different kind of football pre-season under a different manager, a very different kind of football, a less energetic kind of football. I was interested and mildly optimistic about what Danny Röhl was going to do next season when he stayed here. I'm much more. I want Derek McInnes. That's fine. I feel instinctively really good about it, but I don't think there's any headlines there. There's no headlines with, Danny Röhl, it wasn't spectacular last season, but there was occasions it looked okay, and hopefully he can improve on things next season. We need consistency as much as anything else, so let's just stick with Danny Röhl. I think it's good it's been sorted out early doors. Say the day after the end of the season, we're told he's going to be manager next season. That's good. That's no use. That's no use. We started getting things about Röhl's going to be under pressure from the off. He's going to be under pressure for the very get-go next season. I mean, isn't Derek McInnes? Is Derek McInnes not going to be under pressure for the very get-go next season? The fans wouldn't stand for any kind of setback under Danny Röhl, says fans who have it within their gift to stand it if we do have a setback under Danny Röhl next season. Danny Röhl didn't want to be here. That's fine. He obviously didn't want to be here, and it's worked out for the best. But I said maybe a sideways step, and when Derek McInnes was announced as being our next manager, did a wee podcast about that, and I said it's maybe a sideways step for 10 forward steps. No doubt we now have to win the league above all else, but there's a kind of Brexity, we don't need nothing except insularity, warmed in the bodies of the infidels, kind of energy around some supposedly pro-Rangers McInnes tributes. It's not about making us better, it's about keeping us raging. A lot of the podders or various other kind of headlines going on when McInnes, it's for likes, it's for subscriptions. Walter got us to the UEFA Cup final and a goal from the Champions League final, and he took us into more Champions League group stages than we'd dare to imagine nowadays. But we decided back then that we needed a PLG, we needed a TLG, we needed some sort of European, obviously, because if you want to do well on the continent, you should have a Continental at the helm. To be successful in Europe, and it was the cure-all then, get a Dick Advocat, and then Martin O'Neill arrives and starts sorting out Dick Advocat, and it's, get Alan McLeish, we need Alan McLeish. Did nothing but shaft us when he was playing for Aberdeen. McInnes did great with Aberdeen in Europe, just by getting them into Europe 8 seasons in a trot. If he actually just got them there, but success for Derek McInnes at Ibrox means what it meant to Pittodrie, knowing it'll eventually become the millstone that drowns you, the millstone that pulls you down. I think I'm just going to get in ahead of that. Listen, Rangers TV interview, Derek McInnes, it was very emotional, it was really good. He wanted to be he wants to be the kind of manager that he'd like to have played for. As I said, he's all about hard work, about belief. This is what you're putting into his team. The players are never going to have a day off, even if they've got a day off. Standards don't drop just because there's no game on, basically. He's in the suit and tie. He's sitting there. He's suited and booted, not brogued and blazered. I've never seen him like that as a manager. Derek McInnes, it was quite a thing to see him dressed like that. But in the main presser with all the hacks there, he was. I'm just kind of paraphrasing here, but he knows he's out the door if he doesn't bring success straight away. He's just telling, I know no illusions about this job. He's got an idea of what his Rangers team needs to look like. He's very effusive about Hearts. He had his statement, obviously, went out Sunday there. he had to put a statement out to Hearts before he could reveal himself as Rangers manager, which is, I think that's more than Steven Gerrard did when he became Aston Villa manager. But and we were all wanting him back in October there. But he was very effusive. But he's talking about how he loved his time at Hearts. He wished he thinks he should have been Hearts manager earlier. He feels that was something he should have been the manager earlier because it's a great club and he's hoping he gave them a great season and blah blah blah. I think he's safe saying that. He's safe being really effusive about Hearts, maybe even about his time at Aberdeen as well if he was asked, because everybody knows he's a Rangers man, so he's nothing to prove that way. It's just, I think that's what it's like a comfort blanket that for us just now as well. But he was surprised to get the call from Rangers because Danny Röhl was in situ. Danny Röhl was still in situ. He was surprised that Rangers got in touch with him, you know. So he said, "I'll do it." And as Jim Gillespie said, we just let Danny go. But is that a technicality? Is Jim Gillespie kind of buttering that up a bit for our sake? He wants to get a team on the pitch. The fans, there was no release clause. There was no release clause in Danny Röhl's contract. I don't know how much that means. And these days just means more money from the team that are buying them. But he wants to get a team on the pitch, Derek McInnes, that fans can believe in. They need something real. And there's this use of real. This is what I'm talking about. This kind of verisimilitude thing we go to take. You know, when people say that it's much more real. No, life gets pretty real. They mean grim. You know, they usually, and it's, if you want to get ontological, philosophical about it, it's real. If you're sitting in a yacht drinking champagne and snorting cocaine off a Filipino bellboy's suntan butt cheeks, it's still real if you're doing it. That is your reality. You know what I mean? But when people say real, the connotation is earthy, hard going, not pretty. No, it's not enjoyable. So that's a bit scary. But it's easy to say things. He says sitting at your kind of reveal presser, there's work to be done here, but we're going to do it well. There's work to be done, but we're going to do it well. I like that. The intention is to continue the good work being done by Stig and Dan. He was talking to Stig and Dan. That was a thing he was fronting all the time. That must be a big thing, a big part of him signing. They're mates. I mean, Stig and Dan. They're just, that's Dan Purdy and Stig Ingerbjorn. We're all aligned. He wants to get the squad ready for next season. It takes more than just being a good player to deal with what's expected at Rangers. There has to be a lot more under the bonnet. He's going to make that's good stuff. That's what we want to hear, you know, because we're seeing that all the time. These players, they've got all the skills in the world and all that, Asgard, but they don't have that drive, they don't have that ability to push, they don't have that nastiness about them. He's going to make the most of the current squad and maybe add a few more to give us the best chance of winning things. This is a club that should be winning things. I know what I can bring Rangers, but equally, I know what Rangers can bring me. It was good stuff. Derek was giving it good. This is sincerity. This is a kind of, it sounded like a blood pact or something like a blood oath. It sounded like some sort of pact. You believe it not just because it's a West of Scotland working class accent saying it. You believe it because the guy saying it means it in a way no foreigner with the best intentions ever could. That's just a fact. This club means so much to Derek McInnes. It is his home. He can't escape this. He's going to live in the same country as it probably for the rest of his life. So you know what he means, what he's saying here. You know the commitment he has given us. And that's, as long as we can totally break him and ruin his life forever, then we feel that that's fine. He's fit to work for us. When was the last time you heard our head coach or manager at a press conference using all the journalists' first names? Using so many journalists' names. Talking to them, being personable. Help talk them down some of the time. This is the problem. This is what I'm talking about, with the hysteria, with the hype. A lot of it has been planted so it can be cashed in upon when headlines and likes and views and figures are needed later on. And that's where you've got a guy that's able to kind of know what's going on and know the characters that are asking them the questions and talk to them in their own terms. Jim Gillespie intervened to tell us that Derek brings intangibles. He brings intangibles, and he can work within this. But he can work with this performance director, executive / data analysis model as an executive. I think he slipped it in there, Jim Gillespie, like, talking about Derek as part of the executive. He's gone pure CEO there. And we don't want to hear that, because in the very same sentence, he was talking about how manager, the term manager, when somebody said, why are you calling him manager, not head coach? And that's just a nod to the history of the club. So it's a sop then. He's just patronising the supporters by calling him a head coach, because a lot of the stuff they went on to say was very much about how he's going to be a head coach. Part of this all-round plan with many different people involved, while also fighting the notion that he was anything other than the classic manager. There's a bit of, this is what I mean also maybe from a Rangers point of view, get McInnes in because these arseholes just want to go back to Walter Smith, and that's Walter Smith recommended him, that'll do them fine. I don't know. He was asked about 2017, obviously, when he knocked us back, December 2017. The ownership of the club was different then, he said very diplomatically. Translation, I wanted to come, but Dave King was being a bit of a dick, which Dave King was, and still is, I would imagine, all really interested in his money. But this is testament, actually, to Dave King, and moreover, what came after Dave King, what Dave King kind of fronted up, and then the board thereafter, with all the changes, what they powered on to do in the intervening years, and the 49ers in the last year, what they've done as well, it's just laying the groundwork. We're a settled club now, and that's a hell of a thing. That's probably the best thing. This might be one of those things that didn't win as a league title. Well, it did in 2020-21. But like Willie Waddle, the Ibrox disaster, and getting us a European trophy, and Ali McCoy's just everything that he went through has been in the lower leagues and what have you. It means actually much more than any single trophy. What they did and what's been going on for the last few years to get us settled behind the scenes is phenomenal. Now we just need to get the manager and the team to kind of front face it to the customers. The 49ers are quick studies. The Andrew Kavanagh, Parag Marathi, they're quick studies. They've learned that right now it's all about the title. And to be fair, I think they've come in here with a European perspective. We can do great with this club that seems to use its unique position, get constant access to European football. There's a lot of money to be made in UEFA competition. All these great clubs, the traditional big clubs, the legacy clubs, are concentrating on the Champions League, whereas legacy clubs like PSG and Man City, they're concentrating on the Champions League, whereas Rangers, there's still a lot of money in the Europa League. We can get in there constantly. They'll make some serious money from that, and for us, but they've seen, I think, that they're not going to get that. They're not going to get everything they want from European football. They're not going to maximise what they can get out of Rangers if they don't get us that title, get us a league title, and get us winning at least as many, if not more, trophies than Celtic. Then they've probably seen, to be fair to them, Kavanagh and Marathi will have seen what Celtic did. They had Wilfred Nancy. That was their Russell Martin. I mean, it was neck and neck between the two. It was, and who was the worst manager domestically? But they could revert to Martin O'Neill. We didn't. Walter Smith's not here anymore. You know, he's in our hearts. Obviously, he's got a statue. His legacy is all round Ibrox, but he's not here. We can't have him back as manager. So let's get the guy in who Walter coached and who Walter recommended. Do the blazer thing, the brogues thing, even though I don't think he was wearing the blazer or brogues. It was just a suit, basically, and stop calling him head coach while insisting behind the scenes that Derek works with their analysis performance director, with their analyst or performance director, and know that he's collaborated, as he was talking about yesterday, with the data analysis model at Hearts. I mean, for fuck's sake, stop the blue sky thinking, Rangers. Stop the blue sky jargon. It's what I think Kavanagh and Marathi and that have realised. They were never really into that anyway. They're always quite plain speaking, but constantly look to find new ways. Put all your technological, joined up writing, thinking into actually making us better behind the scenes, and to get the blue sky of Rangers' ultimate success at home and abroad. I think we're on to stage 2 now. I think stage 1 was coming in with all the ambitions, coming in with coaches who played expansive, dominant football domestically. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to win the league, but it's, the problem is usually a low block as well. That was the big thing. We were all saying that as well. That's why on paper, the Russell Martin appointment actually made a kind of sense. No, none of us wanted it, but when he got the job, I thought, I suppose we're always complaining it's about beating the low block, and his kind of football is just about overwhelming teams, no matter how much defending the opponents are doing. But then it just turns out in the past season, everybody's decided to attack everybody. Everybody's just gone for it. Motherwell are playing like, kind of Barcelona, maybe Barcelona B, back under Pep Guardiola, kind of tiki-taka stuff and that. So things have changed, and they've had to react to it, and they've certainly learned a hell of a lot about our very particular club in this very weird league that we play in. But I think this is stage 2 now. Okay, we did the Continental coach type thing. We're going to go back to the bread and butter stuff. Get this League One. What can you promise these fans about a Derek McInnes side? Said Peter, it's a goal! McFadden, it's a goal! Peter, PLZ, Martin, will your team entertain the fans? And it was a horrifically pathetic effort. Again, this is what was happening all day yesterday at this press it only lasted for 20 odd minutes, but this is what was happening at this press conference. People trying to characterise them, trying to get him to make promises that he was obviously going to break straight away, so they'd someone to hang him on. What kind of football is your team going to play? Because the Rangers supporters obviously want to see entertaining football. Fucking no, we don't. That's one thing. We get really entertaining football last season. Did you see that 2-8 draw by Celtic? We were sensational in that first half. Then you get Celtic coming back with 2 goals down to equalise. You know, when we beat Hearts 4-2, which eventually gives Celtic the title. However, there was some fantastic. That 3-2 game against Motherwell, we were a disaster in the first half. Really good in the second half. Still get beat, but sensational stuff. The games against Falkirk, 25 goals in each of them, as well as the 0-0. We don't want entertaining football. We want winning football. But Derek goes in and says, well, Peter, I think obviously all fans of all clubs, we want to see their team playing decent football. But it was basically, Rangers fans will find my team entertaining if it wins. He expected it to be our team to have the kind of characteristics of last season's Hearts team, which was unbeaten at Tynecastle. Bring back the fear factor, make the opposition suffer. That's the thing, bring back the Ibrox. Rangers have been too easy. Derek McInnes knows this because he used to come here and do his regularly. No, not regularly at Ibrox with Aberdeen, but he did a couple of times anyway with his Aberdeen team. League Cup semi-final at Hampden as well. We didn't have an actual striker as such, but he's there last season with Hearts when they beat us 2-0 in the first league game at Ibrox, and although there was a few dodgy decisions in that, it was pretty easy for them. So he's saying he's got to bring back the fear factor. Make teams, they will, if they want to take anything from Rangers at Ibrox, they will have to die to get it. There will be an identity and an intensity to any proper Rangers side, said Derek, and that takes more than just being a good player. We need to do well across the board and in Europe. But we need to, and again, this was the emphasis every time he mentioned Europe, but we need to start being more relevant again, winning trophies domestically. More relevant again, winning trophies domestically. That was quite a line. The intention is to win the title as quickly as possible. He was asked, are you trying to win the league? Aye, we're trying to win the league. The intention is the main aim is to win the league title again as quickly as possible, said like a man who had just lost it in the last 4 minutes of the season. It was incumbent of the players that when you sign for Rangers, is to win. You sign for Rangers to win trophies. That was just made him even more relatable as a Rangers manager, as a West of Scotland working class guy. He said incumbent of the players instead of incumbent on the players. It's incumbent on the players. That's what he meant. That when you sign for Rangers, it's to win trophies. He and the players can only enjoy being at Rangers if they win trophies. That's his. You've just got to win stuff. You've just got to win stuff. Music was heard. I think, I don't know if it was a Mozart duettino, but there's definitely music heard at that point. He wants to get more out of the current squad, but they'll look to bring in additions, make us more of a team, win games that we drew last season. They want to win some of the games, just push on. Have that hunger just to get it done. Just be nasty bastards, be obsessed with winning domestically. He wants a confident team that turns up all the time, turns up for every game. And he won't talk about philosophies. The intention is just to win. He won't talk about philosophies. The intention is just to win. So it's not going to be fancy Dan kind of football. Not at first anyway. But who the hell cares? We just want to win, don't we? We just want to get stuff done. That's the first. And I think if you play good football, winning football often enough, and Hearts were very entertaining at times last season, especially against us, against Celtic as well. Winning football, competent football was good to watch. And that's how you get a bedding down there so you can build on it, get more entertaining players in, and just start playing a better style of football, whatever. I don't really care about how entertaining we are. I just want victories, and he walks right into that. And using the line, the intention is just to win, is maybe a go back from Derek McInnes or an acknowledgement, and I find it dangerous. It's something that I've always I've railed against it a few times by mentioning it quietly in my podcast. This thing of Walter Smith said to Alec McLeish at Rangers, just win. You've just got to win. Just win. It's been fucking used as if it was Walter. And Walter, the last thing Walter Smith would ever have done to another manager who was taking the Rangers job was offer him tactical advice, unless asked. He wasn't offering him. He was telling him just generally the atmosphere at Rangers, the demand, you've just got to win. In case you're thinking about playing a certain style of football or bringing on lots of young players to build for the future, you can't, Alec. You've got to just win. And that has been misused, that quote, so often, to the point where there's a body of Rangers fans out there, and this suits your podcasts or whatever news sources who want Rangers fans to be a permanent state of hysteria, who think, well, Walter Smith just said just win. And they did just win when Walter was here. Walter Smith gets slagged rotten by Rangers supporters the whole time he was at Rangers. It's nobody is ever, without criticism, at Rangers. Most of us loved him, but you get drowned out at times. You honestly did. Short memories. But Walter Smith, even a manager as good as him, was getting slagged in his time at Rangers. This idea that he was, just win. All right, boss, we'll go and do that. We'll just win. It's fucking dangerous. Why is he trying on this 4-2-2-2 stuff when all you've got to do is just tell him to win? His staff that he's bringing with him, Alan Archibald, Paul Sheeran, he played with the two of them, and they'll both be managers in their own right. That's good as far as Derek's concerned, because he'll get why he needs to make certain decisions. They get the weight of the job they're advising him on, and they'll be involved in absolutely everything that he does. He also brings Craig Clark, who was the Kilmarnock under-18 coach, who he thought was wasted in the role when Derek McInnes was manager at Kilmarnock, and he would have taken him with him to Hearts. He obviously used him for the Kilmarnock first team, and he would have taken him to Hearts if Hearts weren't totally overstaffed. But he's at Rangers now, we've got money coming out with ears, so it's not a problem. Bring as many folk as you want. Transfers, he has a say in every transfer. He works with Stig, Dan and Jim. It's not all about development and sell-ons. It's a collaboration versus... This was an answer to Stevie Clifford. Stevie Clifford for the Four Lads podcast had said to him, it's all been done by committee, isn't it? They say, no, it's not been done by committee. And then, between Jim Gillespie and Derek McInnes, they then proceeded to describe transfers getting done by committee. So, Derek McInnes, I don't think he said I've got a veto on every transfer or I've got the final say, but I've definitely got a say in every transfer. It's getting done by committee. We're still going ahead with the model that was installed. We're just calling Derek McInnes the manager now instead of the head coach. And then Ewan Cameron come in with the characterisation. Ewan Cameron's, I think he's trying to make himself out to be Hearts fan media, but really being a Jambo, or pretending you're a Jambo, whatever, is a good way, but it was a great position to be able to wind up both sides of the old firm, especially when Hearts are doing so well just now. They're going to be challenging for titles, for trophies and that. But it was a whole kind of lot of performative stuff for him. Hand on heart or whatever it was, confession time. I'm a Jambo. I'm a Hearts supporter. So you definitely, it's really strange for me to see you here when you were holding a Hearts scarf above your head a year ago. That's what managers do. I don't think he'd actually held the Rangers scarf above his head, because I think the photo session they announced at the end of the press conference, that was after the press conference. So it was deliberately emotive stuff for his radio show or whatever. His STV, Ewan Cameron's STV, he's getting adverts on STV, not for his show. I think it's part of STV. So this is just the STV trying to catch up with the fan media aspect, which is also rivaling television. That's why you get the BBC and STV, ITV advertising, each are telling their viewers, that World Cup game is going to be in BBC. That one's going to be in ITV. Something you'd never do before. You wouldn't acknowledge the other channels existed, but they're trying to help each other, because TV's got to survive in this world of YouTube. So that's Ewan Cameron as STV. So he pretends he's a really hot Hearts fan. If he was a proper Hearts fan who was at that press conference yesterday, he wouldn't be announcing hand on heart or whatever it was, confession time. Be honest with you, I'm a Hearts fan. We know you are, Ewan, because it's the only reason you're all over social media. He would just have went in there and went, oh, see, what, this time last year it was Hearts. You were declaring your loyalty. This whole thing of holding a scarf over your head is just to characterise it, make things more emotive. Sorry, I'm telling you that as if you don't know that. I probably tell myself that, but really, it was Jim Gillespie had to intervene, and Derek McInnes goes in there. He's got his sound bites that he wants, Ewan, which is of himself being a bit petty, a wee bit bitchy, to the very face of Derek McInnes, the Judas that is Derek McInnes. So he's going in there and he's got his wee sound bites and all that, and he said, and you're not going to sign any players for Hearts Well, Lawrence Shankland's already come, so that was one thing. And I think Derek ends up saying, "Oh, I know that you, and I love my time at Hearts," and he said that, blah, blah, blah. But he said, I'm no planning to sign anybody for Hearts. No, but Jim Gillespie goes in there quite rightly, and I quite like this for Jim. He seems like a dude, the kind of henchman, maybe a bit of Luca Brazzi. He goes in there and is like, well, I would never guarantee anybody that I'm not going to try and sign a player for their club. Which was just properly answering the question, just sorting that out. That's a ridiculous thing to ask us. That's a characterising question, a leading question. It's a setup, basically. But the way he said it was almost like, I'll sign anybody I fucking want. I'm the Rangers CEO. It was good. This is what we like. This is what we want. We need a bit of this if we're going to overturn the monopoly that Celtic have got on referees and stuff like that just now. So that was really good. Can we win the league next season? He said yes. No, we can. We can win the league next season. That's giving somebody a few sound bites that they want. But it's easier to say it than it is to do it. He was very careful to point that out. Derek McInnes, it was basically a lot of attempts to get him to hang himself, and that's what the press are there to do. Why not? He answered them all honestly and sincerely, those questions. Honestly and sincerely, not honestly and sincerely. But everyone's got enough rope to give him to give him after we draw away West Ham in that pre-season friendly. Every time he mentioned Europe, Derek, the context was domestic football was a priority. The caveat was domestic football is the priority. He was almost getting scared to mention Europe at all. I'll always balk at that, me personally, because it's always been true that domestic football is going to be. You don't get into Europe if you're not doing anything domestically, but its kind of validity as a maxim with the fans wildly fluctuates over the years. We shouldn't always be aiming to eventually do well in Europe. So we shouldn't always be aiming to put Europe in the back burner so we can do things domestically. We should always be aiming eventually to do something in Europe. And I think it's incumbent upon Rangers socially, apart from anything else. We're big bullies. We're big boys in the wee boys' playground in Scotland. We really are. It's the two biggest boys at school. We need to go and fight with boys our own age, our own size. When we go into, and Europe is the place to do that. For us to get bullied, to come up against clubs that can scalp us 7-1 at Ibrox without even thinking about it. Get 6.5 minute hat tricks for their Egyptian strikers. And I'm talking about Liverpool and Mo Salah. That's so. I think we should all, and more to the point, the reason it's getting to me just now is we should kind of blackball any blue nose who starts trying to denigrate our European achievements. I've heard a few sentences being cut off. Europe, we did well, Seville and all that, but you mean what? That's greater than anything achieved by any Scottish club since 2008, when we got to the final in Manchester. Proportionately, getting to a European final for a Scottish club easily outdoes winning the league title. You know what I mean? So don't. I feel it's getting quite self-defeaty, and I say in a Brexity way. We're going to start ruining Europe for ourselves and cost ourselves more money and just look like idiots and totally misunderstand our own history because of the lack of investment domestically over a certain period. A bit of austerity domestically has made us start to lash out at the stuff that's even better for us in the long term because we can't get the 49ers eventually want us to do well in Europe, and Derek McInnes is in there to make sure in one way or another that's exactly where he's going to end up getting us. Derek McInnes, like Lawrence Shankland, took Hearts so close to something so phenomenal last season that they could taste it. When they were denied it in the horrible way that they were, they probably had no stomach for starting again at Tynecastle, knowing that it might have been their best chance last season. They couldn't provide that magical transformation to Hearts' history last season, so they had to transform their own history. Lawrence Shankland last night led the line against Brazil in the World Cup, the World Cup finals. Derek McInnes is manager of Rangers. Long may you remain so, Derek. Welcome back, and all the simply the best of luck, gaffer.